Welcome. I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we delve into another topic and challenge that faces entrepreneurs, business owners, and managers. Today, what I want to look at is acquiring talent for your team. So, recruitment. And the first thing I want to say is stop the video, grab a pad of paper and a pen, because I want you to make a commitment that you'll take something away from today's session that you can implement immediately in your business. That's the commitment every time you watch one of these videos, okay? Take away something, just something you can implement immediately, some actionable item. All right, with that in mind, let's get back to the concept of recruitment. And we have in previous videos talked about developing your team once you have the right talent. And we'll also put a link to the 4 obligations of management. The very first obligation of management is to hire the right people, those with the right raw materials. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus on today. And I think, again, it's always based on your business. The general approach that we're going to talk about should be applicable to everyone and regardless of business size or industry. However, there are some unique little tweaks you need to put on these processes as it applies to maybe your industry, the specific position you're looking for, and the size of your business. The bad news is, you can't just dive into it. You can't just start recruiting. You can't just post an ad and look for somebody. You've got to do some groundwork. You've got to strategize in advance and plan. Like we always say, failure to plan is a plan to fail. So it's no difference when you're acquiring talent and you're engaging in recruitment for your business. It's so important. It sounds cliche, but we always talk about the most important part of any business is the people. And that makes sense when you consider it's the brain power of your people that implement and deliver value to your customers and make a business viable and sustainable. So you want to surround yourself with good people, and you want to hopefully add talent to your team that has some diversity in the sense that you are filling in gaps that you lack. So let's consider the idea of a small team, and they may lack a particular skill set. And when you're adding new talent, you always want to try to add something that you're missing from the team. Okay. And if you are hiring a manager, I always encourage people, try to hire somebody better than you. You always want to hire up, so to speak. Use this as an opportunity to try to hire somebody that maybe is better than you in some way. And of course, I'm not meaning fundamentally better than you as a person. What I'm saying is, in some way, they raise the standard of your team. They raise the value of your team in some way because they are better. So maybe they are more intelligent. Maybe they have a greater work ethic. Maybe they have more organizational skills. You need to look at what you're lacking and sort of document that. What are you lacking in yourself? What are you lacking on your team? What does this opportunity present in terms of finding somebody who can replace something, or not replace something, that they can fill a gap that's missing? And maybe that's a good segue when I mentioned the word replace. Sometimes you are replacing someone, and sometimes it's a new team member that you're adding. It's a completely not a new team member, but a new position. You have to actually start from scratch. And so the first step you have to do is you have to create a role description. You have to consider, what is the objective of this position? Let's define success for this position. If we hired somebody in an ideal situation, we found the perfect candidate, how would we know that they're successful? What performance metrics would indicate that? And so when you do that, you start to come up with objectives for the position. And now the position might be, say, a customer service representative or whatever. And an objective might be to very efficiently and effectively and quickly, urgently handle incoming customer service inquiries. And another objective might be to proactively find ways to improve the customer experience so that we can eliminate common flaws and defects in our system that customers have complained about in the past. These types of things are objectives. So the first place to start before you start thinking about writing an employment ad and before you start brainstorming, who do I know that I could hire for this position, and all the various things that managers kind of do, you've got to sit down and you've got to start planning for the success of the position. And I understand why people sort of drive forward without a plan, and it's usually because of urgency. So let's take a moment to think about that. You should always be recruiting. You don't have to always be hiring, but you should always be planning for the success of your organization through the fulfillment and having the right people in place at all times. And not all positions are the type that you can count on them being you can't count on longevity for all positions, is what I'm trying to say. There are certain positions that are historically transient in nature and that you're going to have employee churn or turnover, as they say. So think about a realistic length of time that you might be able to hire someone for. It'd be nice to say, well, I'll find the perfect person, and they will, as long as I'm owner of this business, this person will be employed by me and they'll be happy and they'll do a great job. That's just not reality. And the higher level positions, certainly the management and that kind of thing, higher earning positions in particular, are often filled by people who may stay around longer, but that's not even necessarily the case. You've seen even with CEOs in big corporations where there's turnover and they may not last more than a year or two. So start to think about it and look historically. If you're not a startup business and you have any sort of history that you can rely on, then you can look historically. How often have we had to replace this position? What is the average tenure, so to speak, of a person that fills this position? And if you are a startup or a newer business, you may have to look to industry averages. And there's probably good data out there. I mean, the government has collected a lot of data on employment statistics. And if you do a little bit of digging, you can probably find that out. Maybe you just need to talk to some colleagues who are in a similar industry, or they have a similar position. You know, if it's a receptionist that you're hiring, a receptionist is common in a lot of different businesses. So if you're in the healthcare industry, you could speak to somebody who has a receptionist in a retail environment or whatever and ask them, what are they finding is the typical length of employment for that position? And give some thought to this. There are strategies you can do, of course, and we won't spend too much time on them today, to increase the chances for success of your people, you know, like good feedback and the report cards and developing them and finding ways for them to grow and learn within the organization. The main key is to align the objectives of all the stakeholders. So your new team member, you want to align her objectives with the organization's objectives. And there are ways to do that, and that will increase your chances for keeping the person longer, and therefore you will have a greater return on your investment of resources put into the recruitment. And those are financial resources and time predominantly. But the real key I'm trying to get across at this moment of the discussion is that be realistic and understand that you will need to be on an ongoing basis recruiting people for your team. People don't, like they once did, work for 40 years at the same company and then retire. And you have to understand, people always are going to do what's in it for them. They're going to do what's right for them and their family. In fact, you should want that. That's how a good market economy works, is everybody operating in their own self-interest. And with that understanding, if you just accept that premise to begin with, then you can align objectives and you can put things in place to make your chances for success in recruitment much better in terms of longevity of hire. So getting back to the role description, remember we said you're going to create a list of objectives of what the person needs to accomplish in the role, which would, if they were successful in accomplishing those objectives, would mean that the position was successful and would therefore lead to the success of the department and the business likewise. So start there, okay? That's the first thing. When you're thinking about your organization in general, are there some common things that you want to make sure that everyone in your organization possesses that really would align well with your values and help promote the culture that you're seeking within your organization? For example, honesty. You know, I think we all want to make sure that the person we hire is honest, but don't take that for granted. What we're talking about when we're saying plan this is that you're going to have strategies during the recruitment process for ascertaining whether or not the people have those particular characteristics that you're looking for. Okay, so once you have a role description, from that you can take a look at it and think, well, what do I need in terms of characteristics for this person? I've heard people say you should hire for attitude and train for aptitude. And I understand that. I would agree with that statement. However, it's not always so easy to just figure out who has a good attitude. And you need to have more than a good attitude. You need to have good fit within an organization. And there should be some sort, like I said before, raw materials, some core constituent aspects of a personality that you're looking for that will favor the chances of success for the person in the role that you're hiring for. So start to jot those down. These are characteristics, okay? So the first key here, we're going to create a profile for the ideal candidate. That's what we're doing here. We're going to create a document that we're going to call a profile for, if you're hiring a sales representative, a customer service representative, if you're hiring a particular tradesperson, if you're hiring a receptionist, any number of things, there's a profile that should be unique to that position. We did already agree that there may be certain characteristics that you want to promote a specific culture and that you're looking for from everyone, such as honesty. Go ahead and write that down as part of the profile as well. You want to have, say, your main things that is like the main characteristics that everyone has to have, the mandatory characteristics. Maybe you have that at the top of the profile. And then you look at, for this specific position, we have to create a profile. And so in the example of a customer service agent, what we started off with was the role description, and we'll take one of the objectives from the role description, such as efficiently handle customer service inquiries. So you might say, well, in order for somebody to see, they might need to be empathic, an empathetic person. And so that's a characteristic you would write on your profile. You would say, I want somebody who's empathic, who has a great deal of empathy. They can put themselves in the shoes of a customer. The next thing, so we go down the list of the objectives and we try to think of all the characteristics we need. So the first thing you're doing is you're making a list of characteristics for the profile. The next thing we have to do is we need to convert those characteristics to behaviors, to actions, to things that manifest in behaviors that you can witness, okay? So an empathic person behaves differently than somebody who lacks empathy. And you need to think, what is a behavior that would be characteristic or would be observable for somebody who has a great deal of empathy? And you might say the person takes time to practice active listening skills and repeats back in their words, makes eye contact, all the various things like that. So this would be an example of converting high empathy as a characteristic you're looking for into an observable behavior, something that they have demonstrated in their life. And so write that down. That's the next thing. So take all of your characteristics and convert them to observable behaviors. Characteristics become behaviors. That's step 2 in creating the profile. And then what you want to do is, on step 3, is take each of those behaviors and from those develop questions designed to ascertain whether or not this particular person has a history of demonstrating those behaviors, especially an employment history of demonstrating those behaviors. You can also find out sometimes that these behaviors are manifest in their personal lives. That's fine, because we are who we are, and we're at work. We might have a slightly different personality than at home, and we might behave differently for whatever reasons at work. But generally speaking, who we are, those raw materials, are evident in both our personal and our professional lives. So start to create questions based on their employment history or something in their history, designed to tell you in the context of an interview whether or not they have demonstrated that behavior. Because the best predictor for future success or future behavior is past behavior and past success. Okay, so how a person tended to behave in their last job and throughout their career is very likely, the smart man's money is that they're going to behave the same way when they work for you. And so look for those things. Okay, so let's just recap real quick here. You start with your role description and objectives. You consider what characteristics would a person need to have to be able to fulfill those objectives. And then you make a list of those characteristics. Then you convert those characteristics to observable behaviors, actions that they may have demonstrated in their history, in their career. Then you convert those actions and behaviors into questions, and you're trying to ascertain whether or not they commonly demonstrate those behaviors. And so in the example that I was using for empathy, and we said that that the person who's empathic, a behavior that they might have is to practice active listening skills, then actually comes to mind right now, not even a interview question. You could observe within the interview, are they practicing active listening skills? Are they leaning in? Are they making eye contact with you? Are they nodding? Are they repeating back in their words what you've said? But you should try to ascertain whether or not they've done that to their success. So let's say on their resume, they had a history of being a customer service agent. And your question may revolve around something. I don't like to just have a single question. What I like to do is have a discussion that essentially answers the question I have, which is, are they demonstrating this active listening skills in this example? And so I might say, okay, well, I see you worked at ABC company here as a customer service agent. Tell me, what was your day like there? How you came in the morning, and what did that look like? We'll do a whole nother video on interview skills and what to do in the interview. This is really about getting started in the planning for proper recruitment. But you start a discussion, and you're trying to figure out that when they're answering you, they are saying things without necessarily knowing it. They are saying things that demonstrate that observable behavior that you're hoping to observe in your business, okay? Those are the 3 steps there that are really critical to creating the profile. Once you have a profile, then you can move on to designing a job posting, an employment ad that can go up on job boards and that kind of thing. What you don't want to do at this point is necessarily spell out for a person everything you're looking for. Because what happens is people throughout the recruitment process, the screening process, they will just tell you what you want to hear. If you give them all the answer key up front, you say, well, this is what I'm looking for, and this is how we're going to ascertain whether you possess those things or not, anyone with a lick of sense is going to be able to just regurgitate that back to you. And you're like, oh, this is perfect. This person knows exactly what we're looking for. When really all they're doing is telling you in an interview what you told them you were looking for in your employment ad. So an employment ad should not tip them off to everything. There are certain things that you're saying that would be assets in the employment ad and that kind of thing. And I think it would probably be a good idea for us to focus a single session and discussion on how to create a good employment ad. So today I wanted to focus on creating a profile for the position out of the role description, and then how you're going to use that in terms of recruitment. Another thing I wanted to touch on is the concept of experience and formal education. I think it is a mistake that many employers make to put far too much emphasis on prior experience and formal education as some sort of indicator of a greater chance for success by hiring this person. I don't think that's really a good idea. I've heard it said that in HR, in the world of human resources, that experience is a good substitute for intellect, and intellect is a good substitute for experience. And so what I tend to subscribe to that premise and believe it. I would say that what they're trying to communicate by saying that is that if you get a really smart person, they can probably quickly learn whatever it is. And these days, the world is changing so rapidly. You're much better off having somebody who's a quick learner who can adapt to the changes. Maybe you're switching software out occasionally, and your processes change, and there's new government restrictions the person needs to adapt to, these types of things. So having a really quick learner is far more important than having somebody who has a lot of experience, somebody who has done, in the example of a receptionist or somebody working in a healthcare clinic, somebody who's had a ton of experience working in a healthcare clinic of some sort. I can see where you would want that, because you're like, oh, they'll know how to communicate with patients, and they'll know about the various administrative things that we have to do with government claims or insurance claims and billings and this kind of stuff. But all of that stuff you can train. If you get somebody who's really bright and has a great attitude and they're very personable, like in your profile, you might say, well, they have to, the characteristic is they have to have great people skills, be extroverted and be friendly. And then you convert that to behaviors that are observable, and you convert that into questions that are designed throughout the screening process to ascertain whether they have it or not. If you get somebody who has those observable traits, you're going to be able to train them to do all that. It doesn't matter. In fact, experience will let you down time and again. You will find that a person who has a lot of experience, you make assumptions that they're going to be able to do things because they've worked in a particular environment or industry similar to yours. I would steer you away from that. Hire for that aptitude, hire for those profile characteristics you're looking for. And another mistake people make is that they hire the person who is the best among the candidates who have applied. What you want to do, and that might sound obvious, like, well, of course, Michael, I want to hire the best. But yes, but the key is, do they fit the profile? If you hire somebody who is arguably, quote unquote, better, they're smarter, or there's some reason that you think of them as being the most qualified candidate, but they don't fit the profile, you are setting yourself up for failure. I have an example of a person I hired for an entry-level position, and the rest of my team was just raving about how excellent this guy was in this particular position that they'd seen lots of turnover in the past. They're like, this is the best guy doing that job we've ever had. Michael, you have to hold on to him. Well, it was a very entry level position with a lot of manual, menial tasks throughout the day, and that's why there tend to be turnover in that position. This particular guy was in medical school, and he was training to be a physician. And I had to tell my team, yes, this guy he's elite in most things that he performs. This guy's been great at everything. He's a star student. He's super intelligent. No doubt you're experiencing that he's great in this particular position, but he's not going to last. He's just doing this for the summer for a little extra money, and then he's going back to school, this kind of thing. That profile, now I was happy to have that guy. We knew we were always looking for someone. So this might be not the exact example of what I was trying to get into, but the key that I'm saying is, if I had taken the time to hire somebody whose profile more closely met exactly what I was looking for, then I would have a better chance of having longevity with that person and not need to, at the end of the summer, rehire someone. Okay, so you're not looking for the best candidate, benchmarking them against one another. You're looking for the best candidate in terms of a match benchmarked against the profile that you've created. That's why it's so critical to spend the time to create a good profile, because that's your answer key. That's your, you're trying to look at a piece of a puzzle and you're trying to see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit, even though it's a brilliant piece of a puzzle, like great colors and whatever, in my analogy, if it doesn't fit, you're making a mistake to hire that. So the way it was worded to me many years ago was, people tend to hire the cream of the crop. You want to hire the cream of the crop, but you also want to hire somebody who's a great fit with the profile that you've created for the position. Also, it is Peter Drucker who says that if you've experienced turnover, and I can't remember how he words it within a particular time frame, you've turned over 2 people in the position, let's say in a reasonable length of time, it's not the people, it's the position. So give some consideration to the role description you've created and the position you've created. Is this a brand new job? Is this something, bigger organizations tend to have role descriptions and specific positions already laid out and they hire, but with the changing times, it may be time to reconsider what is the ideal profile for that position. Should we call it a new, should we give it a new title that redefines things? Don't always do things the way you've done them. And smaller organizations, sometimes they just know, oh, we need help. We're stretched to our capacities. I can't do it. And they just quickly sketch out a whole bunch of things that the boss doesn't like to do. And that'll be the responsibility of the new person. And so that is not the way. It's fine to do that, but then just jump in and hire someone and say, you have to create the profile. You have to take those things, like all the list of the things that are going to be on the role description. You have to go through that 3 or 4 step process that we just described in terms of creating the profile. Going back a moment ago, I said, don't hang your hat or don't hang your hopes for success and recruitment on experience or formal education. Formal education, it's not what it once was. It's getting to the point where our culture, especially Western culture, has taught kids that everyone has to have a degree, and it's become a real business. Post-secondary education has become a numbers game, and they're just churning out degrees. A piece of paper doesn't mean what it once meant. Now, I understand there are certain positions for which a degree is necessary. There is specialized knowledge. You don't want to have laser eye surgery done by somebody who has never studied the anatomy of the eye and doesn't have a specific knowledge to that field, although it's probably done almost entirely by a computer these days, but I digress. Instead, look for people with those right raw materials: intelligence, hardworking, motivated. The greatest predictor for success, this should probably be the theme of the entire video, is motivation. Find people who are motivated. The trick with that one is very difficult to ascertain what motivates a person, but there are things you can look into to try to determine what, like if a person with dependents tends to be more motivated than somebody who, maybe they have nobody, they have a very low cost of living, they're only supporting themselves, or they're already supported by a parent or somebody else, and this job is not critical to them. That doesn't mean they're not qualified, and it doesn't mean that they won't work out, but maybe their motivation to get through the really tough times is lower than a person whose family is depending on him bringing home the bacon, so to speak. So there's ways to look for motivation. If you can find out what is motivating somebody, and it's a very compelling source of motivation, that is going to be a real predictor for success. But the key we're talking about here is look for the foundational, fundamental things that make up a person. That's what's going to be a far greater indicator for success than a formal education or experience. And then create those profiles and match people as closely as possible. Another note on the profile characteristics, these behaviors that you're looking for, these should be binary in nature. And what I mean by that is that they should be qualifiers that either you check the box and you are somebody we will consider, or you don't have the characteristic and we won't consider you. Don't compromise. Now, it's okay for you to realize you've made a mistake in your creation of the profile, but don't allow somebody who's just a really vibrant personality in an interview talk you out of what you already know about the person, about the profile that you're looking for. There are some administrative positions that are requiring real great attention to detail, that they dot their I's and cross their T's. And a lot of the people who have that personality don't shine in an interview. Like, they may be more introverted, but they really value accuracy in their work and everything. And then when they're talking, they're very meek and they're quiet. You get somebody else come in and they've got this great big smile, and maybe they're good looking, and they build rapport very easily and this kind of thing. And then you go, well, they didn't do so well on that particular screening test we did in terms of measuring their accuracy, and as I look at their interview and the profile, I'm not able to observe in their past that they've had a real attention to detail. In fact, they didn't follow the instructions that we gave, and they showed up 10 minutes late for the interview or whatever. And you talk yourself, I'm giving some extreme examples to try to make the point here, but you talk yourself out of what you already know because a person wins you over in an interview. That can be very deceiving. Resumes, reference letters, all these things are designed to influence you. Of course, they're designed to market the candidate and sell you on it. Just because a person isn't particularly gifted at selling themselves, if that's not going to be something that's part of their position and is critical to success on the job, then don't put high value on it. It's okay that they come across like a bit of a dud in the interview, as long as they match the profile. So these are binary things. If the person in my example needed to be administratively inclined and have great attention to detail, and they don't qualify. It doesn't matter how much they impress you in other ways. Now, what can be said is you can still recycle, so to speak, the investment you had in speaking to a candidate who doesn't qualify for a particular profile when something else arises. Maybe your business has several positions that you're hiring for, or in the future, there will be a new thing that arises, a new position, an opportunity, employment opportunity arises in your business, and this person, or it could be somebody you referred to, a friend or a colleague who needs somebody. So this person's great. they're not right for the position I'm looking for, but you're looking for somebody that has this, that, or the other. It might be another department, it might be another business. Maybe you're in a healthcare facility that has 3 or 4. You've got a dentist and a physiotherapist and a chiropractor all practicing together, and say, I know you guys were looking for somebody for your front end, and we were looking for somebody more for administration and accounting in the back. But I had a great applicant who is not at all right for what we're looking for. So, we're not saying that there is a right or wrong personality. We're saying there's a right or a wrong fit for the profile that we've created. And it's binary, it's mandatory. They must check these boxes or we eliminate them. Don't make the mistake that so many people have done in talking themselves into accepting somebody. You just have this confirmation bias. I see it time and again with people who lack human resource recruitment experience, is they talk themselves into all the reasons that this person in front of them will be right for the job. And we do it because we don't like the process and we don't want to have to go through it. And we need somebody immediately, and we can fill our needs immediately. And it would be so nice to just have someone in place, but it's flawed thinking. That logic doesn't work because it's not going to work out. Even if they stay on, they might just create way more hassle for you. And if you're being honest with yourself and you're thinking about it, you've probably experienced this before. You made a bad hire and you let them keep working for you, and you just created more work for yourself. You created a whole new set of challenges that didn't exist before that hire. If you had taken the time to find the right person, even if it meant some short-term pain for you, you had to put off hiring someone to keep looking. Don't hire the cream of the crop. Keep looking, find the right person, and you will be so glad that you did. Now, if you hire the wrong person, you do make mistakes. As soon as you realize that, pull the trigger. That's what a probationary time period is meant to do for you. Now, don't use that as an excuse to just hire someone quickly and go through the process, of reposting an ad and re-screening people and interviewing and everything, and always just be firing people. That's not very common anyway. But what I am saying is, as soon as you realize you made a hiring mistake, and I've made many of them throughout the years, somebody tricked me throughout the process, and I thought they were something they were not. As soon as it became evident to me, don't talk yourself out of your instincts. Pull the trigger and say, you know what? I don't think we're a good fit for one another, and I'm going to try my best to help you land on your feet, and let me give you a good reference for another position, and then get that position back out there and try to find the right person. Having a good, qualified, competent person on your team will make your business so much better. And that's what this is all about. Okay, so let's leave it there for now. There's so much about this we can talk about, and we will. We'll make future videos. Please, in the comments, ask me questions that you want me to elaborate on. Maybe you want to see a video on how do I write a good employment advertisement, more about, can we see an example of a profile? Let's get into some more examples. How do we handle a certain characteristic and convert that to an observable behavior? Whatever it is, if you completely disagree and you have a whole nother method for recruitment that we didn't talk about, put something in the comments. Let's help one another out. Let's learn from one another. Perpetual refinement. Thanks.